city's ever-present curse. Eva adjusted the scarf around her neck, the wool soft against her skin, but it was a shield as much as a comfort. She sat on the worn wooden bench beneath the yellow glow of a street lamp, her fingers curled tightly around the sleeve of her coat. Across from her, Rowan shifted uneasily, the faint flick of a matchstick twirling between his fingers betraying his nerves despite his calm expression. They had agreed to meet here, away from the crowded, volatile spaces where emotions ran too high and danger lurked. This park was a small pocket of calm, its shadows deep but forgiving, the benches spaced enough to allow quiet conversations and gentle touches without fear. Tonight, their pact to move slowly was more than words, it was etched into every glance, every careful smile. Rowan reached out first, his hand hovering briefly before brushing against Eva's fingertips. It was a small contact, a delicate spark that did not threaten to ignite but warmed nonetheless. Eva's breath caught, her stormy grey eyes meeting his intense green ones, shining faintly like embers in the night. "One step at a time," he whispered, voice barely more than a breath. Eva nodded, her lips curling into a tentative smile. Measured moments. This was their new language, born from necessity and fear, but also hope, a way to say everything without risking everything. They exchanged quiet promises. Each word a carefully placed ember to nurture the fragile flame of their connection without burning down the walls they had built around their hearts. But even as the night wrapped around them in protective silence, Eva's phone buzzed softly against her coat. The screen lit up with a message from Leela. "Can we talk?" Now, Eva's chest tightened. Leela was her younger sister, fiery and fearless in ways Eva had never allowed herself to be. Where Eva was cautious, Leela was reckless. Where Eva hid, Leela confronted. She knew what this meant. Leela wasn't one to accept half measures when it came to the heart. Back at her apartment, the tension between them was palpable. Leela leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, eyes blazing with a mixture of frustration and love. "Eva," she said, voice low but insistent, "you can't live like this. Holding back all the time, guarding every feeling like it's going to consume you. You deserve more than caution." Eva's hands trembled slightly as she folded the small vial of ashes she always carried, remnants of her first love, lost to the curse. "I'm trying to protect myself, protect us. But at what cost?" Leela challenged. "You re-alive, Eva. You can't let fear steal your chance at happiness." The words echoed in Eva's mind long after Leela had gone. That night, sleep was elusive, her thoughts tangled between the safety of restraint and the yearning for something more. Meanwhile, Rowan prepared a small gift. Wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine, it was an old, worn book of poetry about measured passion and the art of cautious love. He had found it in a dusty bookstore nestled between the alleys, an ironic treasure in a city where love was a threat. When he handed it to Eva the next day, his fingers brushed hers again, this time with a confident warmth. "For us," he said softly, "to remind us that love doesn't have to burn bright to be real. Sometimes it's the slow, steady flames that last." Eva accepted the book, her eyes moist with gratitude and something else, hope. She knew the road ahead would be perilous, filled with moments of doubt and danger. But here, in the quiet exchange of words and gestures, she felt the stirrings of courage. Later that evening, standing by her window, Eva gazed out over the city. The skyline was dotted with the faint orange glow of distant fires, a reminder of the curse's ever-watchful presence. Yet beneath that flickering light, she saw something new, a fragile, flickering hope. Could their cautious love withstand the fiery trials ahead? Could measured moments build a fortress strong enough to contain the flames? Her heart ached with longing and fear, but also with a fierce determination. Tonight she would keep her promises. Tomorrow she might dare to make new ones. And somewhere deep in the city's smoldering heart, the flame whispered, watching, waiting, but also, perhaps, listening. As Eva turned away from the window, the embers of possibility glowed faintly within her, a promise that even in a city cursed by fire, love might yet find a way to burn gently, defiantly and true. One step at a time, she murmured to herself, one measured moment after another. The night stretched on, thick with unsaid words and quiet hope, the city holding its breath between ashes and embers, waiting to see if love could survive. But as the clock ticked forward, the question remained, how long could two cautious hearts resist the blaze that threatened to consume them both? The answer, ever new, would come not in a single moment, but in the slow, deliberate dance of measured love. The city was unrecognizable beneath a shroud of terror that settled like a suffocating fog. News had spread like wildfire. Multiple couples had combusted within a matter of hours. The once vibrant streets, filled with cautious hope, were now crawling with whispers of dread and suspicion. In the city square, where people usually gathered for solace or protest, the air was thick with smoke and the acrid scent of charred stone. Faces were pale, eyes wide with disbelief and fear as they watched the flickering flames that had claimed more lives that had dared to love. Evangeline Hart stood at the window of her modest apartment, the city's glow dimmed by the heavy smoke outside. Her hands gripped tightly around a small glass vial, the ashes of her first love, a tangible reminder of the curse's cruel reach. The vial felt impossibly fragile, much like her own heart. The memories came flooding back, the laughter shared on sunlit afternoons, the warmth of a touch that had ended in a blaze of loss. A shudder ran through her as guilt gnawed at her chest. Was she being selfish to even consider the fragile possibility of love again? The weight of history pressed upon her, threatening to suffocate the cautious hope she had begun to nurture. Meanwhile, Rowan Wells was trapped in the sterile, metal confines of the fire station. The irony was bitter. The man who fought literal fires, tasked with protecting the city from destruction, now powerless against the invisible flame of the curse. He flicked a matchstick between his fingers, the small flame dancing nervously in the dim light. Each spark seemed a cruel mockery of the fiery fate stalking the city's lovers. His mind raced through memories of his father, Jonas Wells, a man who had perished in the early days of the curse's resurgence. The weight of that legacy pressed heavily on Rowan's shoulders. He paced restlessly, frustration gnawing at his resolve. The curse was tightening its grip, and every heartbeat felt like a countdown to inevitable loss. Detective Elias Thorne's office was cluttered with reports, photographs, and maps marked with the locations of the recent combustions. His sharp eyes scanned the details, searching for patterns and clues that could unravel the mystery behind the curse's sudden surge. The case files were a grim mosaic of heartbreak and horror, each victim a testament to the city's tragic fate. Thorne's skepticism battled with a deep, secret compassion, a drive to protect the city and perhaps, in some small way, redeem his own failures. His investigation had taken on a new urgency. Driven by the fear that this outbreak was more than random, it was a sign of something far more dangerous stirring beneath the surface. In the midst of this chaos, Mira Solis refused to succumb to despair. Her cafe, a small oasis amidst the city's smoldering streets, became a beacon of hope. That evening, she stood before a modest crowd gathered among the warm glow of fairy lights and the scent of freshly brewed coffee. Her voice was steady, infused with a fierce optimism that challenged the city's fatalistic grip. "We cannot let fear be the flame that consumes us," Mira declared, her eyes shining with conviction. "Love is dangerous. Yes, but it is also our greatest act of rebellion. Together, we can stand against this curse, not by hiding but by embracing what makes us human, our capacity to connect, to hope, to fight." Her words stirred something deep within the wary crowd, a fragile ember of defiance against the darkness. Back in her apartment, Eva wrestled with the storm inside her. The guilt of her past love's death clashed painfully with her growing feelings for Rowan. Each heartbeat felt like a gamble. Each glance between them a step closer to the edge of oblivion. The curse's shadow loomed large, whispering warnings in every flicker of flame, every racing pulse. Her phone buzzed a message from Rowan, simple and cautious. "Are you okay?" We need to talk. The weight of the moment pressed down, heavy and unyielding. Could they find a way through the ashes and shadows? Or were they destined to be consumed by the very passion they sought to tame? As the city held its breath, caught between hope and despair, Eva and Rowan faced a choice: to retreat into the safety of solitude, or to risk everything for the fragile promise of love. The night stretched on, thick with smoke and silent prayers. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed a mournful cry that echoed the city's pain. Yet amidst the shadows and ashes, a spark remained, flickering stubbornly against the dark, and in that spark lay the fragile possibility of a new dawn. The marketplace was alive with the usual hum of early evening commerce, lanterns swaying gently in the breeze, casting flickering shadows on cobblestones slick with recent rain. But beneath this veneer of calm, an undercurrent of tension rippled through the crowd. A collective breath held tight in anticipation of the unseen danger that haunted every heartbeat in the city. Evangeline Hart moved cautiously between stalls, her layered coat pulled tight around her, eyes scanning the faces of strangers with a practiced wariness. Each smile felt like a gamble, each glance a potential spark in the tinderbox of her fragile heart. Rowan Wells watched from the edge of the square, his sharp green eyes tracking Eva's movements with a mixture of admiration and concern. He knew the risks better than most. His family's history was etched in the ashes of those who had succumbed to the city's cruel curse. Yet, seeing Eva so carefully measured in her steps, he felt an ache that urged him closer despite the dangers. The flame within him flickered with a reckless hope, a desire to protect and to connect. Suddenly, a scream shattered the uneasy peace. A couple nearby had collapsed, skin glowing with an unnatural heat as the telltale signs of combustion spread like wildfire. Panic erupted as the crowd surged away, but Eva was caught in the middle, frozen with shock and fear. Without hesitation, Rowan pushed through the throng, his body a shield as he reached her side.
"Eva, move!"
he urged, grabbing her hand and pulling her toward the relative safety of a narrow alley. The scent of smoke and burning flesh filled the air, mingling with the cries of the afflicted and the frantic shouts of bystanders. His heart hammered in his chest, the matchstick in his pocket a cruel reminder of the flames he both fought and feared. They stumbled into the alley, breath ragged, but the danger was not yet past. Flames licked the edges of the wooden crates stacked high nearby, the heat intense enough to singe skin through fabric. Rowan positioned himself between Eva and the fire, eyes scanning for an escape route. "Stay close," he whispered, voice steady despite the chaos. In that moment, Eva felt something shift within her, a tremor of trust breaking through years of fear. She squeezed his hand, grounding herself in the warmth of his presence. The protective walls she had built began to crumble, brick by brick. The fire brigade arrived moments later, dousing the flames with practiced efficiency, but the damage was done. The city bore fresh scars, and so did Eva's heart, now marked by the undeniable proof of Rowan's devotion. Later, beneath the soft glow of street lamps, they sat on the cold stone steps of an old building, fingers intertwined, the silence between them filled with unspoken promises. Eva's stormy grey eyes searched Rowan's emerald depths, seeking reassurance and finding it reflected back. "I was so afraid," she confessed, voice barely above a whisper. "I know," Rowan said gently, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "But sometimes courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about choosing to face the fire anyway." A flashback stirred in Rowan's mind, his father, Jonas Wells, a towering figure silhouetted against roaring flames, battling with a fierce determination that had both inspired and haunted him. The memory was bittersweet, a reminder of loss and the legacy he carried. It was this legacy that fueled his resolve to protect those he loved, even at great personal risk. Back in the present, Rowan toyed with a matchstick between his fingers, the flame dancing precariously. It was a small, fragile thing, much like their love, beautiful but dangerous. He knew the path ahead was fraught with peril, but with Eva by his side, He felt emboldened to defy the curse's deadly grip. Mira's calf became their sanctuary in the following days, a place where laughter and hope mingled with the scent of fresh coffee and baked goods. Detective Elias Thorne's steady presence reminded them of the broader battle being waged not just against the flames, but against despair and fatalism. As Eva slowly dismantled the barriers around her heart, Rowan's patience and warmth nurtured a fragile trust. Each shared moment, each quiet gesture, was a defiant act of love in a city that punished such tenderness with fire. But even as their bond deepened, the flame whispered in the shadows, a constant reminder that their courage must be tempered with care. The dance between desire and survival was delicate, and every step carried the weight of possibility. Yet, in the face of this looming threat, Eva and Rowan found a new strength, a kindling courage that promised, perhaps, that love could endure even in the harshest of fires. Their story was far from over. The city's curse remained, but so did their growing commitment, a slow-burning flame that refused to be extinguished. And as the night stretched on, filled with the soft crackle of embers and whispered hopes, they dared to dream of a future where love might just conquer the fire. "You saved me," Eva murmured, the weight of those words settling between them. "I will always try," Rowan replied, voice steady but full of emotion. "No matter the cost." The city held its breath, watching two fiery hearts blaze against the darkness, kindling a courage that might one day rewrite their fate. The soft clink of porcelain cups and the low murmur of conversation wrapped around Eva and Rowan like a protective blanket as they settled into their favorite booth at Mira's calf. The air was fragrant with freshly brewed coffee and the scent of cinnamon pastries, a stark contrast to the smoldering tension that usually clung to the city's streets. Tonight, the warmth felt different, not just physical, but something more fragile and precious. Between them lay a worn, ancient manuscript Mira had discovered tucked away in the city's forgotten archives. Its yellowed pages crackled softly as Eva turned them carefully, revealing delicate, looping script and cryptic symbols that hinted at a hope long buried beneath layers of fear and loss. Rowan leaned in, his intense green eyes reflecting the flickering candlelight, brows furrowed in concentration. "It speaks of a ritual," Eva whispered, voice trembling with cautious excitement, "a way to temper the curse, to love slowly, deliberately, with measured devotion. Not to extinguish the flame, but to control it." Rowan's fingers brushed hers, a spark of warmth that belied the icy dread they both carried. "Measured love," he repeated, the words heavy with possibility. "It's what we've been trying to do all along. But now, there might be a way to make it more than just survival." Mira's eyes shone from across the table, her usual fiery optimism tempered by the gravity of the moment. "I've seen what fear does to this city," she said softly. "But I believe in this belief that love can be our rebellion." Their conversation was interrupted by the creak of the cafe door opening. Detective Elias Thorne stepped inside, the weight of his trench coat as heavy as the secrets he carried. His sharp eyes scanned the room before settling on the trio. He approached, his voice low but urgent. "I've uncovered something," he said, pulling out a folder thick with documents, fragments from old cases, historical accounts that align with this ritual. It's not just legend. There might be a way to fight back against the curse's grip. Eva felt her heart quicken, a mix of hope and apprehension swelling inside her. "But at what cost?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. "The curse isn't just a story, it's real, it's taken so much already," Thorne nodded solemnly. "True. But knowledge is power. If we understand it, maybe we can change it." Over the following days, Eva and Rowan immersed themselves in the ritual's details, guided by Mira's encouragement and Thorne's insights. They learned it required a practiced patience, a deliberate pacing of affection, and trust, a love measured not by grand gestures but by steady, careful devotion. It was a dance on the razor's edge between passion and restraint, a challenge neither had imagined could be possible. One evening, under the soft glow of Mira's calf lights, Eva traced the ancient symbols with her finger, feeling the fragile pulse of hope beneath the ink. Rowan watched her with a tenderness that both comforted and terrified her. They shared silent promises, understanding that every heartbeat, every glance, was a step closer to either salvation or ruin. Outside, the city buzzed with its usual unease, but inside that small sanctuary, something new was kindling a fragile flame of possibility. Eva and Rowan knew the road ahead would be perilous, that the curse's whisper was never far away. Yet, for the first time in a long while, they dared to believe that love, measured and mindful, might just be their fiercest weapon. As they left the cafe that night, the cool air wrapped around them like a shroud, but their steps were lighter, their hearts a little braver. The ritual was more than a legend now, it was their hope, their challenge, and their promise. Together, they would learn to navigate the dangerous devotion that bound them, embracing the bittersweet fate that awaited their fiery hearts. But even as they dared to dream, the flame watched, flickering in the shadows, waiting for the moment their slow, burning love might either conquer or consume them entirely. Eva Hart sat on the edge of the worn velvet armchair nestled in the corner of Mira's cafe. The low hum of quiet conversations and the faint clatter of cups forming a gentle backdrop. The amber light above them dripped warmth like slow honey, casting soft shadows that danced across Rowan's face. His green eyes, vibrant yet tempered by restraint, flickered with an ember-like glow in the dimness. For a moment, the world beyond this small refuge seemed to dim, the curse's ever-looming shadow receding into a distant murmur. She swallowed hard, her fingers twitching beneath the table, yearning to close the distance yet wary of how close was too close. The layers she habitually draped around herself, the thick scarf, the long sleeves, the guarded smiles felt heavier tonight. But here, now with Rowan's steady gaze holding hers, the weight began to lift. Slowly, hesitantly, her hand emerged from beneath the table, trembling just enough to betray her nervousness, and found his. Rowan's fingers curled gently around hers, warmth seeping through the thin fabric of her gloves. "Eva," he whispered, voice low and steady, "we don't have to rush this. We move at our own pace." She nodded, the storm inside her quieting to a gentle breeze. "I want to try," she confessed, voice barely above a breath. "To trust at least a little." Their hands lingered together, a small act that felt monumental in a city where love was a dangerous flame threatening to consume. Outside, the streets whispered of the curse's cruel reach, flickering flames in shadowed alleys, the distant sirens signaling another heartbreak. Yet inside, a fragile hope kindled between them. Later that evening, Rowan sat alone in his modest apartment, the silence thick except for the soft crackle of a candle burning on the windowsill. The photograph before him was worn at the edges. His father, John as Wells, smiled with a bravado Rowan had always admired. The man had been a hero, a protector, taken too soon by the curse that haunted their city. Rowan traced the outline of his father's face, memories flooding back the laughter, the warnings, the sudden, devastating loss. He reached for his phone, fingers hovering before typing a message to Eva. The words spilled out slowly, honest and raw, revealing scars he rarely showed. "I never told you about him," he typed, not fully. "But I want you to know." Eva received the message just as she peeled off the layers she wore like armor. Standing before the mirror, she hesitated, eyes searching the reflection for the courage to be vulnerable. She thought of the small vial of ashes she kept, reminders of a love lost to the flames, a life extinguished too soon. Tonight, she would share not just the grief but the hope that still flickered beneath her guarded exterior. Their conversation unfolded in soft confessions and quiet reassurances, each word bridging the gap that fear had carved between them. Rowan's tales of his father's heroism mingled with Eva's memories of laughter and loss, weaving a tapestry of connection more potent than any physical touch. But the city was never far behind. Outside, the night was punctuated by the sinister glow of recent combustions, flashes of orange and red that painted the sky with ominous streaks. The curse whispered its presence in the wind, a chilling reminder that every stolen moment carried risk. Shadows shifted behind curtained windows, as if the flame itself leaned in to listen. Yet as Eva and Rowan sat side by side, their hands entwined and hearts cautiously open, they crossed a threshold. They embraced the fragile ember of their love, daring to let it glow despite the threat of destruction. In that fragile hope, they found the courage to face the unknown together, even as the city held its breath. "We were walking a tightrope," Rowan murmured, eyes locked with hers. "And I'm willing to balance," Eva replied, a soft smile breaking through. As the night deepened, the flame of their connection burned quietly but fiercely, a beacon against the encroaching darkness. They knew the path ahead was fraught with peril, but for now they had crossed the first threshold toward trust, toward love, and toward a future that might yet defy the curse. Outside, the city waited, its streets alive with whispered fears and flickering shadows. But inside Mira's cafe, two souls dared to hope that their ember could endure the storm. The city beneath the smoldering skies was a maze of shadows and flickering neon, a place where every corner whispered warnings and every breath carried the scent of ash. Eva Hart sat beside Rowan Wells on the rooftop of an aging brick building, their legs dangling over the edge, the cool night air curling around them like a fragile promise. Below, the streets glowed faintly, a scattered constellation of lights struggling against the heavy haze that clung to the city's bones. The air was thick not just with pollution, but with the weight of unspoken fears and longing. Eva's stormy grey eyes traced the patterns of light below, her fingers nervously entwining with Rowan's. Despite the careful rituals they had built between them, the closeness was a volatile thing, a dance on the edge of a flame. The flame lurched in the spaces between heartbeats, a whispering presence that neither could ignore. Tonight, it seemed more tangible, more insistent. A sudden breeze stirred, carrying with it a faint, chilling murmur that danced just beyond hearing. Eva's skin prickled as if the very air had turned to smoke. Rowan's grip tightened around her hand, his green eyes flickering like embers in the dark. "Did you hear that?" he whispered, voice low and cautious. Eva nodded, swallowing the tightening knot of dread in her throat. "It's the flame. It's close." They sat in tense silence, the whisper growing into a susurration that seemed to curl around their souls, reminding them of the peril threaded through every stolen moment. Rowan's jaw clenched, his usual warmth replaced by a fierce determination. "We can't let it win." Eva wanted to believe him, to let the fragile hope they were nurturing take root. But the flame's presence was a razor at the edges of her heart, slicing through the careful armor she'd spent years building. Across the city, in a cramped apartment cluttered with the remnants of a life too hurried to be careful, Leela Hart paced restlessly. Her bright eyes blazed with frustration as she faced her sister, the tension between them crackling like static electricity. "Eva, you're resuffocating yourself," Leela said sharply, her voice a mix of anger and desperation. "You can't keep pretending that love isn't worth the risk. Living in fear won't save you." Eva's lips pressed into a thin line, her layered clothing feeling heavier than ever. "I'm trying to survive," she replied quietly. "You don't understand what it's like to lose everything." Leela's expression softened for a fraction of a second before the fire returned to her gaze. "I do understand. But I also understand that if you don't take chances, you'll never really live." The argument hung between them, a fragile thread pulling at Eva's resolve. Meanwhile, in a small park edged with wilting flowers and twisted trees, Harper chased after a fluttering butterfly, her laughter a rare and precious sound in the city's oppressive silence. Her innocence was a sharp contrast to the fear that clung to the adults around her, a reminder of all that was at stake. Mira watched from a nearby bench, her brightly colored scarves a defiant splash against the gray. "She's the future," Mira murmured to herself, eyes shining with quiet hope. "And we have to fight to give her one." Back on the rain-slicked streets, Eva and Rowan parted ways, beneath the flickering glow of a dying street lamp. The night air was thick with unspoken words, and the flames whisper a ghostly reminder of the danger lurking in their hearts.